In this tutorial, I want to show you the basics of the brush tool inside of Photoshop. And the brush tool is just right over here in the tools area, and the shortcut key is B for brush. And all of our options are basically going to be just like with any other tool up at the top here. And I'm going to go over just again some of the basics of the tool. So first of all, the size. We can adjust the size here by clicking this little button up here, and then it brings up this menu which we can then either type in a size, we can click and drag this. We also have the option of using the bracket keys that will increase or decrease the size by 10 up until it gets down to 10, then it is size a little bit smaller. But let me show you. So when we're at 100 and I just click, that is the size of the brush. I think size is pretty straightforward, but just so we can sort of see, I'm going to kind of go through here real quick. 75, then we come down to 50, and then 25. We can see obviously it's getting smaller as we go down, and of course I don't need to put a brush size of 0 because that wouldn't show up, but what I mean by that is that it would be very, very small. So hardness is the next piece that's pretty important. I'm going to put a brush at about 50 for my size, but I want you to see what's happening with the hardness. When I'm at 100% hardness, I click and drag. Let me actually make it a straight line so you can sort of see what's happening. You can notice that we can very, very clearly see the edges, and as a matter of fact, if I zoom in, I can even see that there's basically a few circles that are just overlapping. So when I adjust this to 75%, you should notice that it becomes a little bit softer. The edge, we're basically feathering the edge of the brush. And we keep going, and we come down to 25% hardness of the brush, and then all the way down to 0. And you can notice how it just gets more and more feathered as it goes. So this can be an advantage, not necessarily when, or sometimes when painting or when using the brush for other reasons, but this can be really helpful to blend things together more because this is very clearly seen. So then we have opacity. I'm going to bring the actually, I'll put the hardness about 50% for the rest of this. Then we have opacity. Opacity is just basically how much we can see through it. So at 100%, we can't see through it at all. So again, here's my opacity. And if I change this to 75%, you will notice that the color looks like it's changing, but really what's happening is it's seeing through to the white underneath it. So there's a 50%, 25% opacity, and of course 0% opacity it won't let us do, so we have to do it at 1% basically, but that means it's pretty much see-through. It's there, you just can't hardly see it because we're only seeing 1% of it basically. So I'm going to come back up to 100%, and then I want to show you the difference between opacity and flow. So it's going to look the same at 100%, but then as I decrease the flow is sort of like how much ink you're giving it. Whoops. So you can sort of see what's happening with the brush. I'm maybe not giving it quite as much ink, and then of course if I go all the way down to 1%, it shows up more than the opacity because it's how much ink I'm giving it. So it's really at 100% opacity, but it's just barely there. And again, you'll notice with this brush that I'm putting a bunch of circles, and where they're overlapping, I'm seeing it more clearly. But hopefully this helps show sort of the size, hardness, opacity, and flow, and sort of the difference between them. because you will want to adjust these as you're playing around with the brush tool, depending on what you're trying to do.